everyone, this is William from CommanderCast.com, and I'm here with the initial deck tech video for the Alpha Build series, and this is going to be our first commander, Avacyn, Guardian Angel. Now we're doing this in Wooburg order, so we're starting this in white, then blue, black, red, green, so on and so forth, even going on to the allied colors and all that. The reason we're going with Avacyn as our white commander is that I actually really like her prevention abilities. She's the 2 triple white 5/4 flying vigilance Avacyn, not the super indestructible Avacyn. But she has 2 very interesting abilities. You know, for 1 in the white, you can prevent all the damage to be dealt to another target creature this turn by sources of the color of your choice. And for 5 white, prevent all damage to be dealt to target player this turn by sources of the color of your choice. So she has a very strong defensive ability. It can actually be kind of political because you can actually target other players' creatures. You know, there's a really important creature they need to keep on the field, but they need to block to stay alive, and you need them to stay alive. You can say, hey, go ahead, block with this. Avacyn has your back. You know, she's going to struggle if we fight any Devoid cards or anything like that, because they actually are just colorless, unfortunately. But she can also be deceptively strong. If you're fighting against a monocolor deck, the second ability can actually just lock them out of damage, provided you have ways to protect her. Which, as we're going through the Alpha Build, we're going to look for different ways to protect her. 5/4 Vigilance isn't that bad, because on defense, she can block. On offense, she's getting in there for some decent poke. If you give her just an additional 2 power, she becomes a 3-turn clock, which white has a lot of enchantments and equipment that can go ahead, pump her up, make her a little bit bigger, and kind of play a control game style finisher where she's going to get there eventually. You know, it's kind of miserable that she has to be 5 hits by herself without any modification, and we don't really get a whole lot to pump her up with the original Alpha Build. So I can actually very easily see Avacyn getting replaced sometime in the future, and that's part of what these videos are going to be for, is to really figure out, is this the commander I want to be playing for this color combination? I mentioned it in the introduction for the Alpha Build series. Now I'm actually looking at Linvala as a potential replacement. Linvala does a lot more on her own. Avacyn's a lot more dependent on a lot of mana. She's very mana hungry. Linvala just comes out and says, hey, are you behind? I'll go ahead and get you back up front. So we'll go ahead, we're going to see how Avacyn runs out. And if I end up switching to Linvala, then I end up switching to Linvala, and that will be that. We may have some test trial periods. We might end up getting some exclusive Patreon type videos up. That I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to handle those just yet, but there we go. Which, speaking of Patreon, if you want to go ahead and support the Alpha Build project, or anything else we do on CommanderCast, you know, the show, Rivals Duel, anything like that, go ahead and head over to Patreon for the CommanderCast Network and go ahead and become a monthly subscriber. Becoming a monthly subscriber is going to help you see these videos earlier. I'm going to go ahead and post these ahead of time for Patreon viewers, so you'll get to see it, I don't know, somewhere between a few days to maybe even a week ahead of time. So let's go ahead and look at what Alpha has to offer, because Alpha gives us not a lot of cards. We're actually running 46 lands. 4 of those were supposed to be protection wards, you know, enchantments that just say, hey, the enchanted creature has protection from black, or red, or green, or blue. Not the white one, though, because that's actually counterintuitive to what we want to be doing. We lose Holy Armor, which would have given Avacyn extra defensive power, and then we could pump more mana into it to give her essentially a bigger butt. I'm just going to go on and say it. But I think one of the sad things is that we lose, like, the Helmet Chotsik, which is a 1-cost mana artifact that has pay 1 tap, target creature gets banding, which that just would have been stupid powerful, especially with Avacyn. Now that I think about it, like, you go ahead, you give one of your creatures banning, because it's any number of creatures with banning and up to 1 without. You can go ahead, block, and then with banding, you're the one deciding where all that damage is going to. So with Avacyn, you can go ahead, pay the 2 mana, give one of your creatures, you know, protection from all that color. You go ahead, you just pile up all your creatures in front of one guy, and that guy's going to be super dead. And all your creatures are fine because you have one creature that's just absorbing all the damage because you're the one assigning all that damage to him to begin with. That's actually just crazy powerful. I definitely need to get Helmet Chastnick for my paper version. And that's a lot of what's going to go into this alphabet series. It's just finding really cool old interactions from really obscure cards. Wow, I did not think about that. So, what else do we have here? We have some very familiar staples. Soul Ring. There's really nothing you need to say about Soul Ring. It speaks for itself. It costs 1, it makes 2. And it's going to be in all of our decks going forward, unless I can just think of a reason not to have Soul Ring. It's a very powerful mana rock. Thank God it comes in alpha, so we get to start with that. And that's another thing. I'm not going to go with the original alpha art if I don't like it, or if I have a newer copy already. Like, we have Swords to Plowshares. I like this art much more than the original one, and there's really no reason not to. Like, it's the exact same card, so we're not going to get the old art if there's a new art that I like that's cheaper or anything like that. So, Swords to Plowshares, premium white removal. This will easily be one of the staples that stays with this deck all the way to our current set. Mana Vault also comes to us through alpha. I actually have a Vintage Masters version right here. Very cheap and easy to get, unlike in paper. Well, no, I'm not thinking. I'm thinking of the other vault, Mana Crypt. There we go. But for now, we have Mana Vault, and usually Mana Vault is going to be. It's usually used to help power up the really large spells really fast. We don't necessarily have that. As you can see, our curve tops out at 6 with Personal Incarnation, Obsidious Golem, and Clockwork Beast, which is a very, very screwy type card. But Mana Vault's primary job here is going to be to help power Avacyn's second ability. We also have, let's see, what else do we got here? We also have Disenchant, one of my favorite cards because it's actually just white Naturalize. Naturalize end up getting moved from white to green. And this is what we have, Disenchant. I have it in my sideboard for my modern deck. Just very good, very staple removal. Another card I expect to stay until the very final. So we actually have, just like 1, 2, 3 staples I would consider automatically. We may or may not keep the Mana Vault. White definitely needs Mana Ramp. It comes in artifacts. And to be fair, it's just not fair. We have a Howling Mine in here, so that definitely helps White draw some extra cards. And it actually has a very neat interaction with Icy Manipulator, where we can go Howling Mine, Icy Manipulator, use Icy Manipulator to tap Howling Mine. Now we're the only one drawing 2 cards a turn for basically what's a 1 mana upkeep, which is a lot better than what some of the stuff we have to resort to. JMD Tome, JMD, yeah, JMD, something like that. Fantasy names. 4 mana to play, 4 mana to draw a single card. That's actually just miserable. But such is the name of the game with playing with alpha cards, and it's not the worst thing we get to do. If we're holding up mana for Avacyn, and they decide they don't want to start swinging at us because it's counterproductive, when you're just going to get fogged, we can just draw an extra card. Other things that we have, the Basalt Monolith, another great staple. 3 to untap, 3 to tap, can go infinite by itself. But we're not looking to play a combo type deck. This would be better for like the Draco Genius type decks. But Mono White needs the mana rocks for later. So we're going to be relying on these more as we get more of the high cost angels, like a Chroma, like Rhea, as we go forward and we just get more of these stupid high cost cards. One of the few downsides to Basalt Monolith and Mana Vault is that they do make 3 colorless, which would help out a lot. If this was Linvala, she would come down a lot sooner. But Linvala works better when you are working from behind. And Avacyn has triple white in her cost. She's actually very heavy on the white devotion. So they're not the ideal mana rocks for this deck. Again, though, they do help power the 7 cost. So you take what you can get. Wrath of God is going to be a staple throughout this entire thing. It doesn't get any better than 4 mana in terms of Wrath unless you have Toxic Deluge, which we don't right now. Also completely hoses the regeneration effect. Different Realms Disc is another pseudo wrath, so that gives us 2. I typically like to play 3 to 4. I believe my paper version actually has close to 6, because that's how I need to make up for the lack of card advantages. It's just wipe other cards to get my value that way. Resurrection is a very, very nice piece of tech. It's something that we talk about on the podcast whenever the topic of white and reanimation comes up. But this is another one that I expect to make the final cut. You don't get a lot of pure reanimation effects in white that are just instantaneous like that. You get like Emeria the Sky Ruins or Rhea Dawnbringer. Or you get like 5 cost spells. Miraculous Return is a very nice one at 5 mana because it's an instant. But we don't have that just yet. So some of these sleepers and cool stuff that we found here. We have Library of Lang, which is basically a spellbook for 1. But anytime you would discard a card, you can put the discard cards on top of your library instead of your graveyard. Really hurts the Necrozar decks that rely on like the Megrim type effects, cards that punish you for discarding. And with all the potentials, no, I don't even know what I was thinking. I'll admit that I cheated and played a game before this, just to test the recording equipment, just to test the deck and various other things like that, which will actually be game 1. And there was a lot of powerful draw in there because someone had a Font of Mythos out. And this card would have been great by then, but at the same time, most of what I'm drawing were lands or cards like Cormus Bell, which just weren't relevant at all because no one was playing swamps or anything like that, so they just became dead cards. A lot of the cards that come up with this deck are going to be color punishing cards. Like Karma, we have all 5 Circle of Protections, which don't even do anything against the Void cards. I was very unpleasantly surprised about. So one of the other things that's going to help us is Meekstone. Right now my paper version of Avacyn has a strong Vigilance theme, where the idea is I can go ahead and attack while keeping my defenses up. And Meekstone helps reinforce that. It's very cheap. It's going to keep the really big beaters off of us, which is really important because we're only running 13 creatures, one of which isn't actually counting as a creature because it's the Jade Statue, which becomes a 3/6 and only during combat. The creatures that we do have are very small, very weenie-y. We've got Savannah Lions, we've got White Knight. Semi-Healer can actually mess around things. I'm curious to see if 1 point of damage is enough to matter in EDH combat. Island Sanctuary is a very nice piece, though. With Howling Mine, we can go ahead and get that extra card and still keep up the cost of Island Sanctuary. So we go ahead, we give up 1 draw, we go ahead and get the other one. So we're drawing like normal. And it's actually very close to Moat. We're going to go, at some point we'll see if Moat just straight up replaces it, or if this is enough. Which works out fine for me, because Avacyn is also just kind of I don't want to say an Angel Tribal deck, but it is a deck with a lot of cards that just happen to be Angels in it, at least in paper. Reverse Damage is another one I'm looking forward to. It's a 3-mana instant that says the next time a source of your choice will deal damage to you this turn, prevent that damage, you gain life equal to the damage prevented this way. So you could very easily block a Progenitus and then just completely refuel your life. It's a very huge life swing. I already play Safe Passage because it's a fog. This is a fog for only one thing, but it also heals you some. Very happy to look at that. Castle is going to give our untapped creatures an extra +2 on the butt. Turns Avacyn into a 5/6, which is very important. Conversion is more of those hate cards. Northern Paladin, yeah. I was talking about missing out on the Helmet Chestnut, but we do have some banning with Benalish Hero. So we're actually going to get... So when she's out, we're going to get a chance to see banning in action. Maybe I don't know. Moto's been a little glitchy lately, so I don't know exactly if this is going to work correctly or not. But we're going to find out. And then probably the big one that you guys have all been wondering about, Death Ward, is in fact a very sweet combat trick. Okay, yeah, it's the Force Field. Force Field going for like 130 in paper, but it's only a couple of ticks on Force Field. I got it for only a couple bucks online, which is crazy. Because this thing is just stupid powerful. For 1 mana, the next time an unblocked creature of your choice will deal combat damage to you, prevent all but 1 of that damage. This is a card that we're going to lean on a lot. And ideally, any life gain we build into this deck later with lifelink or anything like that, is going to just completely outweigh this. It's also just kind of a smaller, more effective version of Avacyn. it doesn't target. Just I can think of situations where this card is actually just incredibly potent, and they're not that hard to think of. Of course, one of the upsides of getting to play with a deck that's literally nothing but alpha cards is that you get to play with some of the classics, and Sarah Angel is easily one of the strongest creatures in our deck right now. In fact, I would say the only one that's really better might be Personal Incarnation, just because it's a 6/6. But of course, if Personal Incarnation dies, we're going to lose half our life. Veteran Bodyguard is one that I'm actually looking forward to seeing how this works. As long as Veteran Bodyguard is untapped, all damage that would be dealt to you by unblocked creatures is dealt to Veteran Bodyguard instead. So with him out, combined with Avacyn's 2 mana to prevent all damage effect, we actually can just continuously fog by having all the damage redirect to him and having that damage, gone. Actually, Banalish Hero kind of works with Avacyn that way too. So we didn't get the Helmet Chatsnik, but we do get Banalish Hero. The downside being that we don't have the Helmet Chatsnik to give a second creature banning, and there you go. But that's more or less what we got. I think the primary win condition here is to just beat him with Avacyn, which I unfortunately don't see happening too often. We have a Crusade Anthem to help what few creatures we have. It's probably going to be wait until we have Blessing, pump up Avacyn, and then swing for big, which I almost did the one game that you guys are about to watch. But, yeah, very sparse. This is basically the bare minimum. And that's really all there is to say about it. So, stay tuned, guys. We'll be going into Game 1 very soon.